Ambassador Jake Morrison walked into the huge crystal building where the Galactic Council met. His black suit looked simple next to all the colorful alien creatures floating, crawling, and walking around him. The building was so tall he could not see the top when he looked up. Crystal walls showed lights from 100 different worlds. But Jake did not care about the pretty colors today. Behind him walked Lieutenant Commander Lisa Brooks. She carried a small computer that recorded everything they said and heard. Her brown hair was pulled back tight, and her green eyes watched every alien in the room. She had been with Jake for 3 years, and knew this day would be different from all the others. Captain Ryan Stone followed them both. His hand stayed close to his weapon, even though weapons were not allowed in the council building. His job was to keep Jake and Lisa safe, but today he felt like they were walking into a trap. The aliens had been acting strange for weeks, whispering in corners and stopping their talk when humans came near. The 3 humans walked down a long hallway made of smooth blue stone. Alien guards watched them pass. Some guards looked like giant insects with 6 arms and clicking mouths. Others looked like floating jellyfish that glowed different colors. The snake-like saurians slithered along the walls with their yellow eyes, following every step the humans took. When they reached the main chamber, Jake saw that every seat was full. This had never happened before. Usually only half the alien representatives came to meetings, but today they were all here. The air felt heavy, and Jake could smell the fear coming from some of the smaller alien species. Chancellor Vexstar of the Andromedans stood up on his platform. He had 4 arms and blue skin that seemed to shine under the crystal lights. His voice was deep and loud when he spoke, and every alien in the room listened. Ambassador Morrison, Vexstar said, humanity has been part of this council for 50 years. In that time, your species has given us many gifts. Your medicine saved millions of our people. Your farming methods feed our worlds. Your weapons protect our spaceships from pirates and raiders. Jake nodded, but did not speak. He knew this was not going to be about thanking humans for their help. Vexstar continued, but your species keeps secrets from us. You have technology that could change everything, but you will not share it. The quantum drive that makes your ships faster than anything we have ever seen. The gravity generators that can create artificial worlds. The energy shields that nothing can break through. A Zephyrian delegate floated forward. It looked like a huge jellyfish with tentacles that sparked with electricity. When it spoke, its voice sounded like music, but the words were angry. Humans think they are better than us, the Zephyrian said. They help us just enough to make us depend on them, but they keep the real power for themselves. This is not friendship. This is control. More aliens began to speak at once. The insect-like Kratheri clicked their sharp teeth together and waved their many arms. The saurians hissed and showed their fangs. Even the usually quiet Talaxians, who looked like walking trees, rustled their leaves in agreement. Jake had expected this. Human intelligence officers had been warning him for months that something like this was coming. The aliens were afraid of human technology and jealous of human success. They wanted everything humans had, but they were not willing to earn it or trade fairly for it. You want our quantum drive technology, Jake said when the room became quiet. Again, his voice was calm and steady. What are you offering in return? Vexstar's 4 arms spread wide. We offer you continued membership in this council. We offer you protection from your enemies. We offer you trade agreements and access to resources from 1,000 worlds. Jake almost laughed, but he kept his face serious. Chancellor, we already have all of those things, and we earned them by helping you when you needed help. When the Zephyrian plague almost killed your entire species, who developed the cure? When the Kratheri worlds were starving, who taught you new ways to grow food? When the Void Hunters were attacking your trade ships, who sent our own ships to protect you? The room became very quiet. Every alien knew the answer to those questions was the same. Humans. Lisa Brooks touched her computer screen and whispered to Jake, "Sir, I'm getting reports from all over the galaxy. Our people are being watched and followed. Some of our trade. Ships have been stopped and searched by alien military forces." Jake nodded. The aliens were not just making demands. They were preparing to take what they wanted by force if humans said no. "We have given you 50 years of friendship," Jake said to the council. "We have shared our knowledge, our resources, and our protection freely. But you want more. You want everything, and you want it for free." Chancellor Vexstar stepped forward. His blue skin was now darker, which meant he was getting angry. "Humanity will comply with Resolution 847 Alpha. You will share your quantum drive technology with all council members within 30 days, or face immediate economic sanctions and military action." The threat was clear. "Give us your secrets, or we will take them by force." Jake looked around the room at all the alien faces staring at him. Some looked angry, some looked greedy, and some looked scared. But none of them looked like friends anymore. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small communication device. The alien guards moved closer, but Captain Stone stepped between them and Jake. His hand was now on his weapon. "Admiral Hayes," Jake spoke into the device. "Execute Protocol 7. The words seemed to echo in the silent chamber. Every alien knew that humans had protocols for different situations, but none of them knew what Protocol 7 meant. Vexstar's forearms began to shake. "What is Protocol 7? Jake put the communication device back in his jacket and looked directly at the Andromedan Chancellor. "Protocol 7 is humanity's answer to your ultimatum. You want to see what the galaxy looks like without human help? You want to know what happens when we stop sharing our medicine, our food, our protection, and our friendship? You are about to find out." He turned to Lisa and Ryan. "We're leaving. Pack everything. Every human ship, every human base, every human citizen leaves alien space immediately." The chamber erupted in noise as aliens began shouting and chittering and hissing all at once. Some were angry, some were confused, and some were beginning to look very worried. Jake Morrison walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing on the crystal floor. Behind him, 50 years of cooperation and friendship were ending. Ahead of him, humanity was about to show the galaxy exactly how much they had been taken for granted. The aliens had wanted humanity gone. They were about to get their wish. The message reached every human outpost in the galaxy at exactly the same time. Dr. Emma Watson was in her laboratory on the Centauri Medical Station when her computer screen flashed red and showed the words, "Protocol 7 activated." She stopped, working on her cancer research, and stared at the screen for a long moment. She had hoped this day would never come, but she had prepared for it. Emma was the best human doctor in the galaxy. Her medicines had saved millions of alien lives over the past 10 years. The cure for Zephyrian plague came from her lab. The treatment for Crathery bone disease was her invention. Now she was being ordered to pack everything and leave. She walked to her assistant, a young man named Peter Kim, who had been helping her for 2 years. "Peter, we need to destroy everything. All the research files, all the medicine samples, all the equipment designs. Nothing stays behind." Peter looked confused. "Doctor, what about the patients in the hospital? The Zephyrians in the plague ward will die without our medicine." Emma felt sad, but she knew her orders. "The aliens wanted us gone, Peter. They made their choice. Now they have to live with it." Across the galaxy, the same scene was happening everywhere humans worked. Chief Engineer Sam Miller was on the planet Kepler 442b, where he had been turning the dead world into a place where aliens could live. His machines were making the air breathable and the soil rich for growing food. The project would take 50 more years to finish, but it would create a home for 10 billion aliens. Sam's communication device buzzed with the Protocol 7 message. He looked at his team of 12 human engineers and shook his head. "Pack it up, everyone. We're going home." His second-in-command, Jenny Walsh, pointed at the huge atmospheric processors they had built. "What about the machines, Sam? If we leave them running, the aliens might figure out how they work." Sam smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Jenny, these machines will stop working in 6 months without human maintenance. The aliens have been watching us work for 5 years, but they never learned how to fix anything. They just expected us to do it forever." The economic impact hit the galaxy within hours. Human trading companies started selling all their alien investments at once. The Galactic Stock Exchange crashed so hard that trading had to be stopped. Alien merchants, who had built their entire businesses around human goods, found themselves with nothing to sell. Captain Kelly Foster was commanding the UES Horizon when the withdrawal order came. Her ship was mining rare metals in the Vega system, metals that the aliens needed for their technology, but could not find or extract themselves. She looked at her navigation officer, Alex Rivera, and gave the order to leave. "Captain," Alex said, "the Andromedan fleet is moving to intercept us. They have 12 ships coming our way." Kelly laughed. "Alex, remind me how long it takes an Andromedan ship to travel from here to the next star system." "About 6 weeks at their maximum speed, Captain." "And how long does it take us?" 4 hours using quantum drive." Kelly nodded. "Send a message to the Andromedan fleet. Tell them goodbye." The U's Horizon disappeared into quantum space, leaving the alien ships far behind. Across the galaxy, every human vessel was doing the same thing. The aliens had ships that could follow, but they were too slow to catch up. Human quantum drive technology made their ships faster than anything else in the galaxy, and now the aliens were learning why they had wanted that technology so badly. On Earth, President Maria Santos called an emergency meeting of the United Earth Government. The huge chamber was full of representatives from every human colony and space station. The mood was serious but determined. "My fellow humans," President Santos began, "for 200 years we have been the galaxy's helpers. We have given our knowledge, our resources, and our lives to make the galaxy a better place. We asked for nothing in return except friendship and respect." She paused and looked around the room. "Instead, we received suspicion, jealousy, and threats. The aliens we helped decided that our generosity was weakness. They decided that our friendship was worthless. They decided that they could force us to give them everything we have worked so hard to create." The representatives began to nod and murmur agreement. "Well," President Santos continued, "they wanted to see what the galaxy looks like without humanity. Now they will get their chance. Every human citizen, every human ship, every human base will return to human space. We will seal our borders and let the aliens solve their own problems." Meanwhile, Jake Morrison was preparing to leave the Galactic Council chambers for the last time. The alien representatives were in a panic. They had expected humans to negotiate or at least argue about the ultimatum. They had not expected humans to simply walk away. Chancellor Vextar ran after Jake as he headed for the exit. "Ambassador." "Morrison, wait. We can discuss this." "Perhaps we were too hasty with our demands." Jake stopped and turned around. His face showed no emotion. "Chancellor, you gave us 30 days to hand over our most important technology or face military action. You made it clear that you consider us a threat to be controlled rather than friends to be respected. There is nothing to discuss." "But the trade agreements," Vextar said desperately. "The medical supplies, the food shipments, the defense packs. If you leave, millions will die." "That is no longer our problem," Jake replied. You wanted independence from human influence. You wanted to make your own decisions without human interference. Congratulations, you got what you wanted. Jake walked away, leaving Vexstar standing alone in the hallway. Behind him, the council chamber was filled with the sound of alien voices raised in anger and fear. They were beginning to understand what they had lost. The withdrawal took exactly 72 hours. Every human in alien space received transport home. Every human facility was either destroyed or abandoned. Every human trade agreement was canceled. Every human defense treaty was torn up. Dr. Emma Watson was on the last ship to leave the Centauri system. As her ship entered quantum space, she looked back at the medical station where she had worked for 10 years. Already, alien ships were approaching to try to take over the facility. They would find empty laboratories and destroyed equipment. Her life's work was gone, but she felt no regret. The aliens had made their choice. Now they would live with the consequences. The galaxy would never be the same. 6 months had passed since the humans left, and the galaxy was beginning to fall apart. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Dr. Kexmala floated through the hospital corridors with growing desperation. Her jellyfish-like body pulsed with dim colors. Instead of the bright lights that once showed her people's health and happiness, how many patients do we have today? She asked her assistant, a younger Zephyrian whose tentacles trembled with fear. 3,000 in this hospital alone, doctor. The plague has returned, and it's spreading faster than before. Without the human medicine, we can't stop it. Dr. Kexmala had worked with Dr. Emma Watson for 8 years. She had watched the human doctor create the cure that saved their entire species, but she had never learned how to make it herself. The human had tried to teach her, but Kexmala had always been too busy with other work. She had assumed Emma would always be there to help. Now, entire cities on the Zephyrian homeworld were empty. The plague that had once been defeated was killing millions of her people, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Meanwhile, in the outer rim of the galaxy, Admiral Zakther of the Saurian Empire stared at his tactical display with growing anger and fear. The screen showed red dots representing enemy ships, and there were far too many of them. Where did all these void hunters come from? He hissed to his communications officer. Sir, our scouts report that they have been gathering in the dead systems for months. Without human patrol ships watching the borders, they have been building. Their forces, Zakther's yellow eyes narrowed. The void hunters were space pirates who attacked trade ships and raided colonies. For 20 years, human defense fleets had kept them contained in the empty regions between star systems. The humans had patrolled the trade routes, protected the weak colonies, and hunted down any raiders who tried to cause trouble. Now the void hunters were everywhere. They attacked in groups of 50 or 100 ships, overwhelming the slower alien defense forces. The Saurian Empire, which had once been the strongest military power in the galaxy, was losing battles every day. Send a message to Earth, Zakther ordered. Ask the humans to help us fight these raiders. His communications officer looked nervous. Sir, we have sent 43 messages to Earth. The humans do not respond to any of them. On the Krathuri homeworld, Chancellor Hicks-Tat clicked her mandibles together in frustration as she reviewed the daily reports. Her insect-like species was facing the worst crisis in their history. The crops were failing without human agricultural supplements, and millions of her people were beginning to starve. How much food do we have left? She asked her aide. Enough for 3 months, Chancellor. Maybe 4, if we reduce rations again. Hicks-Tat remembered the time before humans came to their world. Her people had been farmers for thousands of years, but their soil was poor and their harvests were small. The human engineer Sam Miller had taught them new ways to grow food, ways that could feed 10 times as many people from the same amount of land. But the Crotheri had never learned to make the fertilizers and soil treatments themselves. They had relied on human supply ships that came every month with the chemicals their crops needed. Those ships had stopped coming 6 months ago, and now the crops were dying in the neutral zone. A human smuggler named Tony Rogers was becoming one of the richest people in the galaxy. His small ship carried the most valuable cargo imaginable: human medicine, human technology, and human knowledge. "You want antibiotics?" Tony asked the desperate Andromedan merchant who had come to his hidden base. "That will cost you 50,000 credits and your ship's navigation computer." The proud Andromedan, whose blue skin had turned gray with sickness, did not argue about the price. "Please, my daughter is dying. These antibiotics are the only thing that can save her." Tony felt a little sorry for the alien, but not sorry enough to lower his price. The galaxy wanted humans gone. Well, now you know what that costs. 6 months ago, this same Andromedan had probably supported Chancellor Vexstar's demands for human technology. Now he was willing to trade everything he owned for a bottle of medicine that humans could make for almost nothing. Dr. Vexmara, the galaxy's leading scientist who studied different alien species, published a research paper that shocked every government still functioning. Her paper was called "The Human Factor: How One Species Held Galactic Civilization Together." Her research showed that humans had not just helped other species with technology and medicine. They had been the foundation that kept different alien cultures working together. Humans were natural problem solvers who could find solutions when other species got stuck. They were negotiators who could make peace between enemies. They were innovators who could create new ideas when old ways stopped working. Without humans to bridge the differences between species, the old rivalries and conflicts were coming back. The Saurians and Andromedans had started fighting over trade routes. The Zephyrians blamed the Crotheri for spreading plague to their colonies. The Talaxians had closed their borders and stopped talking to everyone. The galactic communication network was failing because humans had maintained most of the relay stations. The interstellar banking system was collapsing because humans had managed the complex transactions between different currencies and economic systems. Even the calendar that all species used was based on human mathematics. On a hidden monitoring station in the asteroid belt, Intelligence Officer Ben Clark watched the chaos unfold through his sensors and cameras. His job was to observe what happened in alien space and report back to Earth. "Command, this is Outpost Delta." He spoke into his communication device. The Andromedan 6th Fleet just surrendered to a Void Hunter raiding party. They didn't even try to fight. "Understood, Delta. Continue monitoring. Do not intervene under any circumstances." Ben had been a soldier for 15 years, and it was hard for him to watch suffering without trying to help. But his orders were clear. Humanity had tried friendship and cooperation, and the aliens had responded with threats and demands. Now, the aliens had to learn to solve their own problems. The Galactic Council building on Nexus Prime was almost empty. Most of the alien representatives had gone home to deal with crises on their own worlds. The few who remained spent their time arguing about who was responsible for the disaster. Chancellor Vexstar sat alone in his office, staring at a communication device that never rang anymore. He had sent hundreds of messages to Earth, begging the humans to return. Some messages offered money, others offered territory, and some offered complete surrender to human authority. None of the messages received any response. The galaxy was learning what it meant to live without humanity, and the lesson was harder than anyone had imagined. 2 years had passed since humanity left the galaxy, and the destruction was complete. The great crystal building where the Galactic Council once met was now dark and empty. Half the seats had been removed to make room for refugees who had nowhere else to go. The other half remained empty because the species that once sat in them no longer existed. The Crothery Empire was gone. Their homeworld was a dead rock where nothing could grow. Chancellor Hicks-Tat had died of starvation, along with 3 billion of her people. The surviving Crothery wandered the galaxy as beggars, eating scraps and sleeping in abandoned buildings. Their proud civilization, which had lasted for thousands of years, had collapsed in 18 months without human agricultural support. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Dr. Kexmala floated through empty streets where millions of her people had once lived. The plague had killed 60% of the Zephyrian population, and the survivors hid in sealed bunkers, afraid to breathe the poisoned air outside. Their beautiful floating cities had crashed to the ground when the gravity generators failed. Without humans to maintain the technology, everything had broken down. "Doctor," her assistant whispered through the communication device, "we found another group of survivors in Sector 7. They're asking for medicine." Kexmala's tentacles drooped with sadness. "We have no medicine left. Tell them to stay in their bunkers and wait for the air to clear." But they both knew the air would never clear. The plague had changed and grown stronger without human medicine to fight it. The Zephyrian homeworld would be dead within another year. Chancellor Vexstar of the Andromedans paced around his private chamber like a caged animal. His forearms shook with rage and fear as he read the latest reports from his military commanders. The Andromedan Empire had lost half its territory to the Void Hunters, and more ships were destroyed every day. "Contact Admiral Stone," he shouted. "At his aid, offer him anything he wants. Credits, ships, entire star systems. Just get the humans to come back." His aide, a younger Andromedan whose blue skin had turned pale with exhaustion, shook his head. "Sir, we've tried everything. The humans established a quarantine zone around their space. Our ships can't even get close enough to deliver messages. Their automated defense platforms turn away any alien vessel that approaches." Vexstar threw a datapad across the room in frustration. "How can they just ignore us? Don't they care that billions are dying?" The truth was that humans did care, but they cared more about teaching the galaxy a lesson. The aliens had demanded human technology by force, and now they were learning what happened when humans said no. General Rexmoth of the Saurian Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched another battle group get destroyed on his tactical display. The Void Hunters had grown from scattered pirates into a massive fleet that controlled half the galaxy. They had better ships, better weapons, and better tactics than the remaining alien forces. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the Void Hunters are using human weapons." Rexsmith's yellow eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "The energy signatures match human plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes. Someone is selling human military technology to the raiders." Rexmoth realized the terrible truth. Humans were not just refusing to help their former allies. Some humans were actively helping their enemies. The galaxy had betrayed humanity, and now humanity was returning the favor. Tony Rogers counted his money in his hidden base while alien customers waited in line outside his door. The human smuggler had become the most powerful trader in the galaxy, and he was enjoying every minute of it. His warehouse was full of human goods that desperate aliens would pay any price to buy. "Next," he called, and a group of Talaxian refugees shuffled forward. The tree-like aliens looked sick and weak without the human environmental suits that had allowed them to live on other worlds. "We need atmospheric processors for our colony ship," the lead Talaxian said in his creaking wooden voice. "Our people are suffocating in the old life support systems." Tony smiled. "I have 3 atmospheric processors in stock. The price is 2 million credits each, plus your ship's computer core, plus information about alien military movements." The Talaxian's branches drooped. "That's everything we have." If we pay that price, we'll have nothing left. Then your people die, Tony said without emotion. Your choice. The Talaxian paid the price. His people would live for a few more months, but they would be helpless refugees for the rest of their lives. Intelligence. Officer Ben Clark sat in his monitoring station and watched the final collapse of galactic civilization. His sensors showed massive refugee fleets drifting between dead worlds, looking for somewhere safe to land. Pirate ships hunted the refugees like predators, taking whatever they wanted and killing the rest. "Command, this is Outpost Delta," he reported. "The last Andromedan colony ship was just destroyed by Void Hunters. No survivors. I count 15 major refugee fleets still moving, but they're running out of fuel and supplies. Copy that, Delta. Maintain observation protocol. Do not assist." Ben had been watching the galaxy die for 2 years, and it never got easier. Sometimes he wanted to break his orders and help the desperate aliens, but he remembered why humanity had left. The aliens had chosen to be enemies instead of friends. Now they were learning the cost of that choice. Dr. Vex Mara published her final research paper before the last university in the galaxy closed down. Her paper was called "The End of Galactic Civilization," a species-by-species analysis of the collapse. Her research showed that every major alien species was either extinct or close to extinction. A complex trade networks that had connected. Thousands of worlds had completely broken down. Entire sectors of space were now controlled by pirates and raiders. The technology that had allowed different species to live and work together was failing without human maintenance. Most importantly, her research proved that the alien species could not work together without humans to guide them. They had different ways of thinking, different values, and different goals. Humans had been the bridge that allowed cooperation between species that would otherwise be enemies. Without that bridge, the galaxy had returned to its natural state: chaos, conflict, and survival of the strongest. The few remaining alien leaders met in secret on a hidden space station. They represented the last survivors of species that had once ruled star empires. Now they were refugees, planning a desperate final attempt to contact humanity. "We have to make them understand," wheezed an elderly Saurian general. "We were wrong. We need them to come back." "They won't listen," replied a Zephyrian scientist, whose body had lost most of its glow. "We threatened them. We tried to force them to give us their secrets. Why would they forgive us?" An Andromedan diplomat, one of the few survivors of Vextar's government, spoke quietly. "Because that's what humans do. They help people, even people who have hurt them. It's who they are." The others looked at him with desperate hope. Maybe, just maybe, human nature would save them all. But first, they had to find a way to reach the humans through the quarantine zone that surrounded human space like an impenetrable wall. 5 years had passed since humanity walked away from the galaxy, and the silence from space was almost complete. On Earth, Admiral Jake Morrison sat in his office at Terran Defense Command, reading reports from the monitoring stations scattered throughout the galaxy. The numbers were worse than anyone had imagined. 18 major alien civilizations were completely extinct. 47 others had collapsed to the point where they no longer functioned as organized societies. The total death count was estimated at over 300 billion beings across 2,000 worlds. Jake's computer chimed with an incoming message marked as highest priority. The message came from outside the quarantine zone, transmitted by an old emergency beacon that barely had enough power to reach human space. The face that appeared on his screen was barely recognizable as Chancellor Vextar, the once proud Andromedan. Leader looked ancient and broken. His blue skin had faded to gray, his forearms were thin from malnutrition, and his eyes showed the defeat of someone who had lost everything. "Admiral Morrison," Vextar began, his voice cracking with emotion. I know you probably won't listen to this message. I know we don't deserve your help after what we did. But I'm not sending this as a chancellor or a leader. I'm sending this as someone who is watching as people die. Jake leaned forward in his chair, surprised that any message had gotten through the quarantine systems. Vextar continued. You were right about everything. We needed you more than you needed us. We were too proud and too stupid to see it. The galaxy is dead, Admiral. My people are dead. Most of the species that voted to threaten humanity are gone forever. The Andromedan's voice broke completely. Please, I'm not asking you to forgive us. I'm not asking you to trust us. I'm just asking you to remember who you used to be. You were the species that helped everyone, even when they didn't deserve it. There are still children alive out here, Admiral. Innocent children who had nothing to do with our mistakes. The message ended, leaving Jake staring at a blank screen. He had seen hundreds of similar messages over the past 5 years, all begging for help, all ignored by official human policy. But something about this one felt different. President Maria Santos called an emergency meeting of the United Earth government within hours of receiving Jake's report. The Great Assembly Hall was packed with representatives from every human colony and military base. The debate that followed would determine the future of 2 galaxies. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, Earth's leading expert on alien societies, presented her analysis to the Assembly. Her research showed that the surviving alien populations had learned hard lessons about cooperation and humility. The species that remained alive were the ones that had tried to help their neighbors during the collapse, not the ones that had tried to take advantage of the chaos. The aliens that are left are not the same ones that threatened us 5 years ago, Dr. Mitchell explained. They've been through hell, and it's changed them. They understand now that survival requires cooperation, not domination. Admiral Hayes, the head of Earth's military forces, disagreed strongly. They made their choice when they tried to force use to hand over our technology. Why should we risk human lives to clean up their mess? What's to stop them from turning on us again once they recover? The debate went on for hours. Some representatives argued that humanity had a moral duty to help the suffering aliens. Others insisted that the galaxy's problems were not humanity's responsibility. A few suggested that helping now would only make the aliens dependent on humans. Again, Jake Morrison stood up to speak, and the entire assembly fell silent. His words would carry great weight because he had been there when the crisis began. 5 years ago, we walked away because the aliens treated us like servants instead of friends, Jake said. They wanted our technology, but not our friendship. They wanted our help, but not our partnership. So we showed them what the galaxy looked like without us. He paused and looked around the room. Well, now they know. The question is, what do we do with that knowledge? Do we let the survivors die to prove our point? Or do we show them what real leadership looks like? Jake's voice grew stronger. The aliens were wrong to threaten us. They were wrong to try to force us to give them our secrets. But we were right to leave, and we can be right to return. Not as their servants, but as their leaders. President Santos called for a vote after 12 hours of debate. The result was close, but clear. Humanity would return to the galaxy, but only on their own terms. Operation Starlight began 3 months later. Admiral Jake Morrison commanded the largest human fleet ever assembled as it crossed into the former Galactic Council space. 200 ships carrying doctors, engineers, teachers, and soldiers spread out across the galaxy to begin the work of rebuilding civilization. The first stop was the Zephyrian homeworld, where Dr. Emma Watson returned to the medical station. She had abandoned 5 years earlier. The building was still there, but it was now surrounded by refugee camps, where the last few thousand Zephyrians struggled to survive. Dr. Kexmawa floated out to meet the human ships, her body so dim with sickness that she could barely glow at all. When she saw Emma stepping off the shuttle, she began to cry tears of relief. "Dr. Watson," Kexmala whispered, "I thought we would all be dead before you came back." Emma smiled sadly. "I'm sorry it took so long, old friend. Let's get to work." Within days, human medical teams had stopped the plague that had been killing Zephyrians for 5 years. The cure was the same one Emma had developed before, but this time she made sure that Zephyrian doctors learned how to make it themselves. On what remained of the Crathuri homeworld, human agricultural teams worked with the few surviving Crathuri to restart food production. The humans brought seeds, fertilizers, and farming equipment, but they also brought teachers who would make sure the Crathuri could feed themselves in the future. The Andromedan territories were mostly controlled by void hunters and pirates, but human military forces quickly drove them out. The aliens were shocked by how easily human ships destroyed the raiders that had terrorized the galaxy for years. Chancellor Vexstar, now a refugee leader rather than a government official, met with Admiral Morrison on the space station that had once housed the Galactic Council. The crystal chambers were cracked and dim, but they still served as a meeting place. "Admiral," Vexstar said, kneeling before the human leader, "how can we ever repay you for this kindness?" Jake helped the Andromedan to his feet. "Stand up, Chancellor. We didn't come back to rule over you. We came back to help you rebuild." The new Galactic Accord was signed 6 months later in the same chamber where the crisis had begun 5 years earlier. The document was different from the old Council Charter in important ways. Humanity was recognized as the senior partner in galactic affairs, with the right to make final decisions about military and economic policy. The other species would contribute according to their abilities and receive protection and guidance. In return, most importantly, the Accord included strict rules about technology sharing. Humans would share their knowledge freely, but only with species that had proven themselves trustworthy. No one would ever again demand human secrets at gunpoint. Doctor. Emma Watson smiled as she watched the first class of alien medical students graduate from the new Galactic Medical Institute. These students had learned not just how to use human medicines, but how to improve them and create new ones. They would go back to their worlds as teachers, not just as patients. The galaxy was healing, but it would never again forget the lesson it had learned. Humanity had not needed the galaxy, but the galaxy had desperately needed humanity. The other species had been given a second chance they did not deserve, and they were determined not to waste it. As Admiral Morrison looked out at the stars from his new headquarters on Nexus Prime, he felt satisfied that justice had been served. The aliens had learned humility the hard way, and now they could learn cooperation the right way. Humanity had walked away once. They would never need to do so again.